Hello, I'm Mark, and this is the Fast Track Impact podcast for researchers who want to be more productive and achieve real-world impacts from their research. This week I want to think with you about how you can use a policy seminar or some other kind of policy type event as an opportunity to establish relationships and build long-term pathways to impact. Now, very often when you get an opportunity like this, you turn up, you design maybe a policy brief to accompany your work, you give your presentation, and that's it. It's all over, and you're not even sure who turned up. There were people. You didn't recognise most of them. Maybe some of them were policymakers. Maybe they weren't. But what happened next? And if you want to ensure that you are investing your time wisely, then I would suggest it's important to understand how you might be able to find out who is actually in the audience and incentivize them to stay in touch with you so you can start building relationships and making plans so that it's not just a drop in the ocean. A nice idea while it lasted, but you have the opportunity to follow up with people and increase the likelihood that your policy seminar actually has impact. Now, this is the second episode I'm putting out this week, which is a bit of an unusual thing. That's on the basis that I've done a two-part episode reading from a paper, which may not be everyone's cup of tea. And also, as I said in the episode I just put out, I'm at the climate conference in Madrid this week, and I was recording that from in the main hall. Well, not in the hall, kind of outside the hall. You could hear the hubbub. And I figured, maybe there's an opportunity for a wee bonus podcast episode talking about policy stuff and something you might be able to learn from what I've learned at this conference. So this is my attempt to do that, and I'm hoping that after giving you my longest ever episode, I'm also going to give you my shortest one. So let's keep this short and sweet. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a worked example of what I've done in this conference, so you can see what I've done, but also I'll try and stand back from that and say what I've learned and why I've done this, and give you some pointers on some kind of thing, some things that you can do as well. And the first thing is that, as you'll be familiar with, the approach that I take to impact is all about relationships. It's a relational, empathic approach. And so for me, at the very outset, this is not about turning up with what I want to talk about. It's making sure that I'm turning up with something that I know that the policy stakeholders I'm talking to actually want to hear about. Now, for me, this is about doing this on the basis of an invitation. And the great thing here is where you're adding value to policy colleagues, then you get invitations. So whether this is my UK work, where I've been consistently adding value wherever I possibly can, I'm the person that then comes to mind when they need someone to join a committee. Or next month I'm going down and I'm doing some training for a particular DEFRA team on stakeholder engagement, for example. And I'm getting those invitations because I'm there. I'm kind of present and in people's minds. In this case, this has been about the same kind of thing, trying wherever possible to say yes to opportunities to generate impact for my colleagues in the United Nations, in the Environment Programme, specifically in the Global Peatlands Initiative. And as a result of doing things that have value for them, because they've asked if I can do things and I've said yes and I've generated those things, they've then asked me to come and talk about that. Now, in terms of the broad work I do on peatlands, I'm talking about a tiny, tiny sliver of what I actually do. But the message here is talk about whatever that tiny sliver is that is actually of interest to the policy stakeholders you're working with, rather than contextualizing it all with all the stuff that you care most deeply about that maybe they don't care about that much. So this is about long-term relationships, and when you've got those long-term relationships, then the opportunities arise, and now I can work with those people to really work out exactly what is going to resonate and help. Now, the first step that I went through, sadly, after having arrived at Madrid, it wasn't the best of planning, but hey, life is busy, was to start drafting exactly what I was going to say. And for me, the way that I would normally do this would be a mind map, but I knew that there were just essentially three things that I'd been asked to talk about. And the problem that I got was I just couldn't work out any kind of sensible narrative that could connect the three things I'd been asked to talk about. And to make matters worse, I'd been asked to talk within a session about South-South collaborations and learning. And actually, I'm from the North, the global North. So instantly I've got a bit of a challenge here. So I kind of sat and admittedly worried for some time, and the mind mapping kind of thing just wasn't working for me. So I decided to try and kind of get some flow by writing this out in prose. And I thought, well, I need to try and keep this really simple. So let's try and write this in the style of a press release. And if it works, then hey, I'll have a press release at the end of this as well. So my first draft talk was a press release. Here are three ideas, and then just trying out different ways of working a narrative that would connect those ideas until I'd got something that I felt hung together for the kind of audience that might read a press release. Now, the reality is it's very, very niche and pretty technical, and I'm almost certain no newspaper will ever pick up on this. But hey, it's still maybe going to be useful for for one university website. So the next step then for me was to go from the press release to some notes and some slides, and at this point to start thinking about, as I'm turning this into my talk, how can I start building in opportunities for longitudinal follow-up and engagement with my audience, so that I'm not just informing people, I'm actually creating opportunities for deeper, bigger, longer-term impact. So I've got two forms, and I've got them printed out, and embedded within my talk, there's going to be two pitches to my audience. On your seat, you will find two forms. The first form is an opportunity to join a working group that I'm leading. And if you join this working group, then this is what you might benefit. It's a funding working group. So the sell is fairly quick and easy on that. If I want funding, maybe I'm going to join this working group. Great. And I've made sure it's GDPR compliant. I'm asking them to add their names, and their email address, and I'm asking them two questions as well. I'm asking them to identify national research funders who might fund applied policy relevant peatland research, and I'm asking them to tell me what their research questions are. So it builds into a process I've already been doing with this working group, but they get to not just hear the results of our working group, but actually put in their own ideas to it as well, and be part of the process. The second one's a very similar thing. It's a kind of working group. It's going to be a workshop next year. If you put your name down here, you will get an invitation to that workshop. And even if you don't want to come to the workshop, you'll get the opportunity to engage electronically in this process that you've been learning about. So again, yeah, we're presenting what we've done to date, but I'm trying to work out how I can give people opportunities now to feed into the next steps of that. And again, GDPR compliant, I've got the form with their name, their email address, tear off the slip and leave it on your seat as you go. Now we'll see how this goes. I'm doing this tomorrow, so I've yet to see how many people will turn up, let alone actually fill in a form and leave it behind. But as part of the preparation for that, I like to write out my notes in full. I like to then try and memorize them as far as I can, so that, yeah, I'm kind of reading through them, but I read it in a way that it doesn't look like I'm reading it out. That's the theory. And I can then think about how I practice my intonation and my body language, my hand movements, etc. So I've been doing that tonight. And one of the ways that I've been doing that is through the creation of a video. So I did a couple of takes of doing an audio recording of myself. I listened to the first version of the audio version and thought, yeah, you know what, Mark, that's pretty flat, to be honest. Just listening back to myself, I thought I was putting some passion into this and some intonation, but yeah, it was pretty flat. So I did a second take on that, and I did this much more in a kind of a journalistic style, really thinking about how I put intonation, emphasis into particular words, contrasting different parts of sentences, etc. And so that's part of my kind of practice of how I want to deliver this in terms of how I speak, but whilst doing that also thinking about some of the hand movements I might do and things like that as well. The other thing that I wanted to get right was all of the timings on my slides. So once I'd gotten this in my audio recording, I was then able to work with all of the transitions in my slides. So I've got various slides which have images which will then go to the next image and the next image and the next image. So that as I'm speaking, there's lots of interest for the audience. And these are images which back up what I'm saying. They illustrate what I'm saying. In some cases, they are images of the thing I'm talking about. In other cases, they're visual networks. So I'm talking about synthesizing evidence across multiple projects and sites. And I found an image, an aerial image of loads and loads of circular and square fields from a satellite. And the image zooms in, and so I then changed the wording to say this is about synthesizing from the patchwork of different studies and sites that are available to you. So I'm getting that visual metaphor working with the words that I've got based on what I found, what inspired me as I was looking through different options for visual metaphors that might illustrate this quite abstract idea of evidence synthesis. And so now when I press that button, I know that the images will be going in the background. I don't need to worry about any of that stuff. I just need to focus on what I'm saying that right. And I know and I can trust that the images will be where they're meant to be at the right time. The added bonus of this is that I'm going to have the video to be able to link to the bottom of my press release, which will be on the university website. I can also put it onto social media. And on the website, there's also going to be a link to the 2 forums as well. So people who are not actually here can hopefully also get involved in the process, and I find out about their interests as well, and get to build long-term pathways to impact with even more people. That's the theory. So to conclude, that's what I've done. That's my worked example of what I'm, in theory, going to do tomorrow. We'll see if it all goes according to plan. There are, of course, other options. So you've heard me talking previously about a postcard to your future self. Just Google that and you'll get my guide on that if you want to find out more about that, or look at my vlog. Sign-up sheets are another thing, but you have to have a think about, well, what is it that I'm going to get people to sign up for? And you put in that very prominently at the door, hopefully standing there and reminding people, would you like to sign up for this? But what is it that they're signing up for? If it's just my newsletter, well, yeah, I've got enough newsletters, thanks, and maybe I'll just slide a little past you and ignore the sign-up sheet. But actually, maybe I'm presenting some new research findings, and they are interest, but they're not available yet. And so I'm telling you that if you put your name on this on the sign-up sheet at the back, I will email you with the paper as soon as it is available. You will be among the first people in the world to get that paper. And at the same time, I will ask you how you have used what you learned today, and if there's anything that I can do to help. And via email now, I'm getting the opportunity one-to-one to send the paper. Oh yeah, I remember that. And ask the question, how's it going? Have you applied any of this stuff? Is there something that I might be able to do to help? Final idea is going old school on this, which is just old-fashioned networking. So quite often you'll do a seminar and it'll be a lunchtime seminar, and the normal approach here is that you have lunch first and you get everyone into the room with lunch. That's the draw. And then you do your seminar. And if people want, they can eat while you're doing your seminar. And the suggestion here is that you make the tea and coffee come after the seminar. So tea and coffee or whatever it is, maybe it's an evening thing and it's alcoholic drinks and orange juice, but you make sure that there is that very clear networking opportunity after the event. And now you've got time to go and find those people. Open the conversations, talk to them, find out, so what did you think of that? Do you think you might be able to use it? What questions have you got? And can I get your card? And now, great, I'm writing on the back of the card. I talked to them about this, they were asking about that, and now I can follow up with them. Again, legitimately, they gave me their contact details. So, a policy seminar, you think, great, fantastic opportunity, and then afterwards realise that you squandered your opportunity because you didn't build anything into that opportunity to enable you to find out who the people were and to be able to legitimately follow up with them. There are lots of options. My plea to you is do something, just anything, to make sure that you don't lose that opportunity to get long-term impact.